All right, let's take a look at section 4. Here's the focus question. Andrew Jackson was a man of contradictions. He was not well educated, but he was eloquent. He championed the common man, but excluded Indians and African Americans from democracy. He rose from modest origins to become a rich man and slave owner in Tennessee. He disliked banks, paper money, and some of the results of the market revolution. He was a strong nationalist who believed that states, not the federal government, should govern, and he opposed federal intervention in the economy or interference in private life. By Jackson's presidency, politics was a mass activity, constantly engaging millions of Americans and penetrating all spheres of life. It was a mass spectacle with enormous meetings, party newspapers, parades, and celebrated politician orators. Large national conventions replaced congressional caucuses in nominating candidates. Political parties and urban political machines dispensed patronage in the form of jobs, assistance, and other benefits. Jackson himself introduced the spoils system, in which a new administration replaced previously appointed officials with its own party's appointees. Furthermore, newspaper publications dedicated to communicating party platforms and stances played an increasingly prominent role in shaping public opinion. Newspaper editors helped to write Jackson's speeches and communicate between the White House and local officials. Politics in the age of Jackson concerned issues associated with the market revolution and tensions between national and sectional loyalties. Political debates centered on banks, tariffs, currency, internal improvements, and the balance of power between national and local authority. The market revolution shaped many party positions. Democrats tended to be alarmed by the growing gap between social classes and warned that non-producers like bankers, merchants, and speculators were using connections with government to enhance their wealth to the disadvantage of producers like farmers, artisans, and laborers. Democrats wanted government to avoid interfering with the economy and giving special favors to economic interests. Without government interference in the market, ordinary Americans would compete fairly in a self-regulating market, and the most meritorious would succeed. Democrats tended to be upcoming businessmen, farmers, and urban workers. Whigs supported the American system, believing that protective tariffs, internal improvements, and a national bank could develop the economy and spread prosperity for all classes. They were strongest in the Northeast, the most modernized region. Many bankers and businessmen supported their program, as did farmers near rivers, canals, and other waterways. While many slaveholders supported the Democrats, who believed states' rights protected slavery, the largest Southern planters voted Whig. Party battles of the Jacksonian era reflected conflict between public and private definitions of American freedom and their relationship to government power. To Democrats, liberty was a private entitlement best protected by local governments and threatened by a powerful national state. With Jackson, the national government's power decreased. Weak federal power ensured private freedom and states' rights, so Democrats under Jackson reduced spending, lowered the tariff, killed the national bank, and refused federal aid for internal improvements. States thus replaced the federal government as main economic actors, planning road and canal systems and chartering banks and other corporations. Democrats also thought individual morality was a private concern, and they opposed attempts to impose a uniform moral vision on society, such as temperance laws restricting or banning the production and sale of liquor, or Sabbath laws banning business on Sundays. This was one reason that Irish and German immigrants tended to vote Democratic. Democrats supported policies that enhanced the free agency of individuals, leaving them free to make their own decisions and pursue their own interests. Whigs believed that liberty and power reinforced each other. They thought an energetic federal government enhanced freedom, and liberty required a prosperous and moral America. Government would create the conditions for economic development, producing prosperity for all classes and regions. Like the Federalists, wealthy Whigs saw society as a hierarchy of social classes. But unlike the Federalists, they believed class status was not fixed. Individuals could rise in society through hard work. Whigs also believed the government should intervene in individuals' lives to ensure that they acted as free moral agents, and thus supported schools, temperance laws, and Sabbath laws. Dedicated to states' rights, Jackson's first term saw his efforts to uphold federal supremacy over states. The 1828 tariff, which raised taxes on imported goods, aroused opposition in the South, particularly in South Carolina, where it was called the Tariff of Abominations. Believing that the tariff punished Southern consumers in order to benefit Northern industry, South Carolina's legislature threatened to nullify it, that is, to declare it null and void in South Carolina. South Carolina had a higher percentage of enslaved people than any other state and was ruled by an oligarchic elite of large plantation owners alarmed by the Missouri controversy and by growing federal power. Jackson's vice president, John C. Calhoun of South Carolina, developed a theory of nullification. In it, he argued that states had created the national government and each state retained the right to prevent the enforcement of Congress's laws within its border that seemed to exceed powers written in the Constitution. Opponents such as Daniel Webster argued that the people, not the states, had created the Constitution and the federal government, and that nullification was illegal, unconstitutional, and treasonous. While no other Southern state threatened nullification, Calhoun's theory offered the South a political philosophy to use when sectionalism intensified. Calhoun argued that the theory did not threaten disunion but preserved it, allowing unique and diverse states to preserve their interests while remaining part of the federal union. To President Jackson, however, nullification was disunion. In 1832, when a new tariff was enacted, South Carolina declared it would be null and void the next year. In response, Jackson persuaded Congress to pass the Force Act, authorizing him to use the military to collect the tariff in South Carolina. To avoid war, Henry Clay, along with Calhoun, created a compromise tariff in 1833 that reduced duties. South Carolina rescinded the nullification law, and Calhoun abandoned his Democratic Party and Jackson for Clay and Webster and the Whigs, where they were united only by their hatred of Jackson. So that was Section 4. We'll bring you Section 5 next.